Hi, I'm your course advisor, David Reid, and this is my colleague Danny Lewis, our lead course developer here at Point Blank. We're here to answer any questions you may have about Point Blank Music School. Welcome along to Friday Forum Live. So yeah, this week we'll be checking out another of the tracks that Danny's brought along. He's going to kind of deconstruct it, show you how it was put together, and work through some of the elements with you. So yeah, over to Danny.
So yeah, I've got an Ableton project again, and the focus here with this one is of using samples, because the track that I've got, I actually used quite a lot of samples, actually from released tracks. And so the whole thing here is about trying to use little building blocks from tunes and do something with them, you know, so that obviously you don't get anything that's recognizable, because that's going to get you in trouble because you're using samples. So what I do is I start off, I'll play you some of this so you can get a feel for it. I'm going to jump into the music here. Now, the main element of this is the organ, and you know, a lot of people know me as a big fan of the M1 organ. So I mean, I could have used the plugin and I could have easily worked out the chords, but I was just wanting to get a little sketch down really quickly. So I in fact used a tune, and you can see down here on the simpler that it says Debbie Gibson, One Step Ahead, right, which is a Masters at Work dub. This is a really, really old tune from the early 90s, and so I'll see if I can trigger the sound for you solo first. So let's take this over here. So this is how I played it in. You can see the triggering information here. So that's me playing in the sample. There's a lot of nice noise there. That's one of the things I like about using samples. You can hear the grainy sort of texture, but you can see the complete tune over here in Simpler. And I'm going to zoom in, and you can see where I actually started from on that complete track. So let me see if I can find you. Try and find the original. There we go. In fact, it was probably down here. Let me take the reverb and the delay off. So that's the original tune. And if I keep my key held down on here, you're just going to get the whole tune coming through. So this is basically the tune, and I've just taken a very, very short section of that at the very beginning. I didn't even bother editing the sample. One of the great things about working with Ableton Live is if you want to get stuff down quickly, it's nice to just be able to throw a complete tune into the simpler and then just start it from a specific place and then trigger it up and down. Which is the kind of thing that I did on my track. So if I bring back the reverb, bring back the ping pong delay. So this is something new from a complete track. So it's just like a real nice, quick and easy way to do it. I'll show you a couple of other elements. So over here, this is really low in the background, this sample, but this is a loop from a tune. And because Ableton makes it so easy to just grab a loop and drop it in, this is what I did, you know, and you can see down here, if I run it over that, you can see it's a track. It's Rescue Me, the Beanie and Martini mix. That was the Sun Kids. That's an old tune from a long time ago. But what I've done with this is I've just dropped it in, used the EQ3 to low cut the information in the sample. And that's just a little texture. You don't really hear it. You know, it's just something that's just embedded deep in the actual production. So there's this is not a sample, that's the side nth again, and so that's basically a sustained pad that's going through here. You can see the auto filter, the compressor, which is being basically sidechain ducked from the kick. And let me see if I can find some other samples that I use. Well, this is a real hybrid, you know, you've got a real mixture of the instruments and also samples. So what have we got here? A break. This is like an old kind of funk break. So you might recognize that. And what I did was I basically chopped it up and then I resampled it. You know, inside Ableton, you've got the ability to play something and record it in at the same time. So resampling is something I do fairly often, and so it's a nice way to get a condensed kind of project. You don't have to have lots of stuff all over the place. You can just keep processing and resampling to get something new. So that's a classic old break, and you can hear it's chopped up, and it's got this kind of envelope on there. If you look at the waveform, there's a fade in, and I actually put that in using the clip envelope modulation to get that vibe. So in the mix, I'm just going to come up and I'm going to solo the break. So you can hear them together there. You've got the kick, the hip hop break, my programmed drums on top. There's another loop. This is from a tune. What did I use to sample that? I'm trying to remember. There we go. You can see here, it's a real people track. Angela Johnson, Can't Stop, the Kenny Dope dub. So all I'm using there is the hats. So if I solo just that, so you can hear that it's got a little bit of envelope modulation on there, so the volume's been tampered with. There's also a ping pong delay, which is creating extra movement. So if I take that off, that's how it would have been on the original track. Isn't it bouncing around a little bit there now? So in the mix, so you can see, I mean, there's a lot of sampled stuff in here, mixed up with some programmed stuff from virtual synths. The vocal was from a tune. I've got to be a bit careful with this, because if I told you about this one, I might get in trouble. But it is manipulated and played around with, and you can see there's some automation here that's being used to adjust the delay there. And also some of these, I'm running the vocal through the beat repeat to create a rhythmic, it's a movement that really kind of takes your focus away from the original sample. So this is very much a sample tune, very much the whole kind of the ethic that we used to use back in the day. And a lot of studios would just have a sequencer and a sampler, and a lot of people make their complete tune by taking elements of other people's tunes and put them in the sampler, triggering elements to create something new. So that's pretty much the vibe here. So with Ableton Live, we're using simpler a lot of the time, or we're using things like the actual audio warping. You saw that here with the break. So it's a combination of these sort of elements. And you can also see, actually, I used quite a few different grooves in this production. Over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to expose this a little bit. I used SP1200 grooves, also just the generic swing as well. So I mixed and matched a few to get this sort of slightly disjointed flavor with the beat. So if we just take all the drums, you'll hear it. It sounds a little bit rough actually when you listen to it, but I actually quite like that. Take away the click for the moment. But it's got this kind of chunky sort of flavour to it, and that's coming from all these elements. It's almost like layering together all this sort of collage and making it make sense at the end of the day. A couple of M1 bits in here. I remember when I made this, I only had the LE version of the M1. It came free with a little keyboard that I got. And so I could only ever have one instance of the M1 running at once. So that I was basically bouncing stuff out here. So this is the M1 finger click, which is a real classic sound. So that's as audio. The same with this cascade. I think this was the Law patch, which is a really atmospheric old 90s sound. And I think on here, no, Universe in fact, you can see the name of it there. So basically the Universe cascade. I'm going to play this for you. Let's just take it forward. Here we go. Let's have a listen to that. That's me running my finger down the keyboard, which is a nice way to make some effects. And so that's the M1 patch as well. So I'm just going to stop there for the moment, see if anyone's got any questions. How's it looking? Can you see anyone? Oh, here you go. Put your comments on there.
There's no questions so far.
No questions at the moment. Okay, well, look, I'll just keep rolling forward. Or do you want to come in with anything? Talk about anything about the courses?
Yeah, well, I can give you a quick sort of rundown on some of the courses. The easiest way to sort of talk about the things that that you guys want to hear about is obviously to send us a question. So yeah, if you've got any questions about what we do, how the courses work, who teaches them, the material covered, any of that kind of thing, send us a quick question on the YouTube comments now, and we'll try and sort of tackle the specific things you're interested in. If you're completely new to Point Blank, then I'll give you a quick kind of overview of how it works. The online courses are available to you wherever in the world you are. So you can access your course materials 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Classes started this week, So you can still jump on a class now. So if you're watching this and thinking, yeah, I'd like to get involved, then you can. As I say, classes started on Monday and there are still a few last minute places available. So what do you get when you enroll? Excuse me. Essentially, you log into a secure area of our website, and that's where you access all of your course materials. Those course materials will include video tutorials, they'll include course notes, they'll include little audio examples, so maybe referencing certain tunes or types of tune, that kind of thing, that illustrate a particular technique or production process. So there's lots of material for you to get your teeth into, and that's available to you whenever you want to check it out, basically. Usually towards the end of the week, you'll have a live masterclass with your tutor. Now those live masterclasses work in a similar way to what you've just seen Danny do. So the tutor might have up a project up on screen, might be a finished track, or it might just be some of the elements from a track, and he'll guide you through it. He'll talk you through it, explain to you, how certain processes or effects were achieved. And obviously you can ask questions in the same way that you can on YouTube. So you just type in a question and the tutor can tackle your particular kind of concern or question. Then at the end of the week you submit one of your projects. So that's our opportunity to kind of hear the kind of thing that you've been working on, and how you've interpreted the course material, because it's all about interpretation, it's all about your creativity. So you upload your track at the end of the week, and then within a couple of days what you'll get back is a one-to-one video tutorial. So again, what you're seeing on your screen is your project in Ableton, so something like this. And then you'll hear a voiceover from your tutor. You'll be able to see all of his mouse movements on screen, and he'll basically be guiding you through your track. So pointing out things that that are working well, and then maybe also pointing out some areas where you can improve, or maybe take a slightly different approach. It's all done constructively, so obviously we're not there to completely pick apart your track. We're there to give you sort of inspiration and guidance and help you push forward with your music, basically. So that in a nutshell is how the online courses work. As I said, you can access the materials 24/7 for a full year. The only bit that's sort of time limited is the tutor interaction. So if you take a 4-week course, you've got access to the tutor for 4 weeks. If you take an 8-week course, obviously you've got a tutor with you for 8 weeks. So the key difference between what we do and other sort of modes of learning is you've got this guide with you throughout, and all the tutors that we use here at Point Blank are all people like Danny who've got a outstanding kind of track record in the music industry, discography as long as your arm. They've worked with everyone from kind of very well established major artists through to sort of underground acts, and many of them are kind of well-known underground producers themselves. So you're in good hands, basically. So that's it in a nutshell. Get some questions over to us, and as I say, we'll try and tackle some of your questions. Let's see what we've got in the comments. My screen's just updating. Have you got it up?
So look, 4 new comments.
Okay.
Explain a little, how does LFO affect filter and volume? Okay then. Well look, what I'll do is I'll get something up. Let's set up a MIDI track with something. Going to bring on the synth, which is called Analog. So let's load this one up. So just coming back to the question, how does LFO affect filter and volume? All right, so what I'll do is if we get something up here, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start a brand new live set, otherwise it's going to get messy, so I'm not going to save that. And on here, we're going to stick the analog. So we've got a sound here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the sustain to maximum, and I'm going to record something in. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just paint it, it's going to be easier. So let's just go over here. And I can basically adjust the parameters without having to play the keyboard. Let's just check. Right, so At the moment, that's just playing completely sustained with no changes. So what we'll do is we'll show you the filter. So what I'm going to do is bring this on, and I'm going to show you something manually first so you get a feel for it. And one of the good things to do when you're doing this is to also bring up the spectrum so you can also see what's happening with the frequencies. Because if we're doing LFO to filter, then we're changing the tone with a rhythmic amount. So you can see here that this is a very rich sound. So we've got all of this sonic information. It's basically 20 hertz on the left, 20 kilohertz to the right. That's the range that we can hear as human beings. So you can hear it's a very bright sound. Now, if I was to bring my filter frequency down, you can see that the energy is going down there. So it's not as energetic as it was before. Now, if I wobble this, we've got the equivalent of what the LFO is. So the LFO is just really a remote control for the filter frequency. And if I want to introduce this, what I'd need to do is to turn the LFO on, and then I need to basically make the filter be affected by that. So if I increase the amount, you can see now that what I was doing before is automatically being done. So we've got a situation now where the filter frequency is being modulated. That's what we call it. I can exaggerate it if I bring the resonance up. So you can hear that going on, and then we can actually adjust the speed. So that's the rate. So how many times per second is that filter going up and down in terms of the cutoff frequency? And obviously, a lot of people might want to tempo synchronize this. So if I put the click on, and we turn this icon on here, which is to tempo synchronize, we can adjust the rate here in terms of a grid. So that's now synchronized with the click. So let's just adjust that. And this is, of course, is that whole sort of foundation of some of the wobble kind of sounds that you would have heard over the years. It's almost become a bit of a cliche in some respect, but it's good to understand, what's happening, what's going on with the filter. The LFO is basically taking control, even though you can't see it here, where my finger is, the mouse is at 1.4K, it's taking that and it's making it go higher and lower automatically. That's what's going on with that. So that's the filter. So what we want to do is to now modulate the level. So LFO1. So this is the volume. This is volume being modulated. So that's creating a nice, bit of movement to the sound. I'm going to take the sync off. Go back onto hertz. So it's the same kind of concept, but this time it's not changing the tone. This is changing the volume. Interesting flavour, you can add this. You don't even need to go for the maximum amount either. I've gone for the maximum amount. Just slight. Reducing the amount of modulation, but we've still got a little bit of movement in there. Real instruments, what happens is with real instruments is that they don't tend to be a perfectly constant level, or they don't tend to be a perfectly constant tone. So that's the whole point. That's the reason these things were introduced originally, but it just happens with electronic music that they've been turned into deliberate effects. That's what's going on with that. So hopefully that's explained that to you. Any more questions?
I'm not getting any comments on here.
There are more.
Okay, let's have a look.
Dark atmospheres.
A lot of the time with atmosphere, it's about reverb.
So there's a question before that.
Oh, is there another one?
Deep house sounds.
Warm up those pad sounds for those warm deep house tracks. Well, warming, it depends what your definition of warming is. Some people have different definitions to others. And so generally warmth is not necessarily very bright or high frequency energy. It's got a kind of nice kind of warm flavor to it. Now, if I could demonstrate that, let me see if I could do that here. So let me just get this sound, and let's just, right, this is, let me turn the filter on. take the LFO off the filter. So I'm also just going to change my waveform from the sawtooth to the pulse, and just going to adjust the width here. There we go. Let's take the volume modulation off as well. So we've got, just going to adjust this. I'm going to take the sustain, I'm just going to take the decay shorter, frequency down. So, a bit too loud. I'll turn it up. Oh, this, too loud. So, also I'm just clipping on the master there, I'm just going to bring this down. So this sound here, if I stick some reverb on that, quite a lot of it, we've got this kind of nice warm kind of vibe to it. If we reduce the envelope amount, what's happening is the reverb's adding this nice kind of warm atmosphere. Let me switch back to the saw. So that's like a kind of pad sound. Usually we'd slow the attack a bit with a pad as well. Gonna do the same here. So something like that is like a nice kind of deep house kind of pad. And that's warm because we've taken away the high frequency energy, we've bathed it in reverb as well. So that's giving it that kind of texture to it. So basically it'll be using the filter, taking away the highs, using the envelope to shape the sound a little bit, running it through a reverb. So that's going to give it what I would class as a kind of warm sound.
And then we've got that question about a really emotive type of atmospheric sound, yeah, kind of dark atmosphere.
Dark atmosphere. Dark atmosphere. When I think of dark, it's kind of almost, sometimes it will be some kind of musical kind of tone in terms of the notes being played, yeah, almost like a kind of chord that's quite sinister maybe sounding. Almost maybe some kind of harsh, slightly harsher texture in there, maybe. So for something dark, if I was to get some kind of distortion into the signal path, let's just play around with this a bit. Just going to shift the octave down as well.
Another thing you could check out actually would be there's a tutorial that I think is on the YouTube channel that Danny did for Halloween.
Oh yeah.
That's got some quite nice dark atmospheric sounds on it.
I mean, something like this, just playing a few notes and just running the drive and modulating that, you know, just increasing that. That adds a kind of dark atmosphere, you know. So you've got this kind of combination of the notes that are being used. And the modulation, you know, this is very kind of filmic. You know, if you've got like a film soundtrack, you'll get these kind of droning beds. And I'd probably add some further notes down on there, but I haven't got enough fingers to stretch whilst I'm modulating here. But this kind of a vibe could work. I tell you what, I'll take the octave down on the synth. Something like that could be a good little atmosphere. What I would do in live probably is to construct a rack that would be having this synth, maybe a couple of others, you know, in a chains and basically arpeggiated. So there's a combination of the sustained sound that's got that kind of droning pad, but then also maybe some kind of twinkling kind of notes to add some sort of high frequency vibe on there. So that's the kind of stuff that we do on that sound design course. You know, we're building very complex instruments, chaining stuff together and creating something that's almost like a workstation style instrument. You know, we used to have these, well, you still get them, things like the Korg, the Kronos, you know, where you hold down one note and it goes on a complete journey. You know, so the sound is not just one element, it's about 4 or 5 that are basically evolving over time, going through different effects and different treatments.
Yes, a couple of other questions come in. Rusty James was asking, do the tracks from the courses get released? Yes, they do. Point Blank also has a record label. If you've got tracks that you think are ready for release, then we'd love to hear them. If you can find out more on the website. So there's a label tab on the website. If you click on that, it'll tell you more about how you can get your music released through Point Blank. You can also check us out on Beatport, iTunes, Juno Download. All the major download stores will all have Point Blank student tracks on them. So that's the answer to that one. And then someone else was asking, are analog and operator enough, or do we need to have plugins like Silent and Nexus, Omnisphere, and one other one that I won't mention?
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, for me, a lot of the time, those synths are these kind of, it's like all the work's been done for you. You know, that's kind of how it feels to me. So an expert sound designer has sat down, they've made the most of the architecture on that particular synthesizer. They've created some really, really cool patches, and it's going through some of the things that I was showing you there, a chain of different effects. And so you could get close to the sort of sounds that you're getting from those devices through a series of chains, like in Ableton. The great thing about it is this concept of having a series of devices that are working together, and even things can run in parallel, right? Which means that you can layer elements together that are occurring on separate paths. And check out some of the videos on the YouTube channel for examples of that. And this, for example, here, this whole chain, I'm going to right click and go to group. This becomes its own bespoke instrument. I can take away all of this lot, and all we're left with is these rotary controls. So if you think of things like Nexus and Silent, this is the same thing that's going on. It's just presented in a different way. So I would say that Ableton's built-in instruments, you can get a great sound, but I wouldn't say that the presets themselves are the best starting point. That you need to get creative and create your own stuff using these tools here. It's a much more flexible system than those other synths you were talking about. But a lot of these synths, remember that they've been put together in a way, it's a speed thing. You've got famous producers who've created presets for a certain style of music. You just go through your trance preset 1, 2, 3, 4, and instantly you're sounding like one of the big names. So that's because they've done all the work for you. So you can get a similar result, I would suggest, using the Ableton instruments. I'm perfectly happy with going through and creating stuff. A lot of the stuff that I do these days is through Ableton Live and through this very flexible architecture of the instrument racks or the audio effect racks.
Just picking up on that as well, I think those the sound design courses that we offer, there's one on the native instrument software, there's also one that's hosted entirely on Ableton Live. And if you're looking to give your music a unique flavour, they're a great way to do that for exactly the reason that Danny's just described. One of the things about making music these days is everyone's got the same kind of, the same VST synths and the same kind of, plugins at their disposal, and everyone reaches for the same presets, which means that you end up with a lot of people using quite a small palette of sounds and stuff starts sounding the same. Whereas once you've got a few of these sound design skills under your belt, you can really start giving your music a unique flavour, because all of a sudden you're creating sounds yourself and you've got a really solid understanding of synthesis and sampling and how to use those things creatively. So it can really give an added dimension to your tracks, I would say, learning some of this stuff yourself rather than just reaching for a preset.
Yeah, I mean, presets are great for inspiration, and I do use them. I think if you were to get a scenario where you were working with somebody to brief, you had a soundtrack and someone's got a visual and they're saying to you, the sort of thing you guys were talking about earlier, I want a dark atmosphere. And then, you're going to go through all these presets and try to find something, but actually it's a lot better to understand how you could make something that sounds atmospheric, how you can make it sound dark, what's the possibilities in terms of shaping that sound. And so that's where you're going to be able to do that if you've got an understanding of all the plugins, the devices that you could use, the possibilities. And we teach the foundation stuff, so you understand the core, and then you can go off and discover stuff in your own way. You know, that's the whole thing. So we make sure you understand the fundamentals and different applications. You have proper professional applications of that. So good examples, so you see them in context, and then we encourage you to go off and discover stuff and build your own, sounds and devices.
So yeah, there's a couple of questions coming in, just following up on that discussion about sound design. So to answer the first one, the courses focus on exactly what we're describing. So the courses we're talking about are called sound design. You'll find them on the website. One's based around Native Instruments software, so it's mainly revolves around Reactor and Contact. If you haven't checked those out, then do take a look, because they're really great pieces of software. So because that's hosted on the Native Instruments software, it doesn't matter whether you're a Cubase user or a Logic user or an Ableton user. The software you use is kind of, by the by really, because the skills that you learn are mainly on those plugins. If you want to do some of the kind of thing that Danny was doing just there and learn more about how to get creative with the instruments in Ableton, then as I mentioned, there is a specific sound design course on Ableton Live that looks at analog, operator, tension, collision, all the instruments that you get in the suite, and really how to maximise the sort of the sound design potential in those instruments. I'll just see if there's any other questions that have come in.
We're doing this one for half an hour, aren't we?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of drawing towards the end now. I can't see any fresh questions, but if there's anything you want to know, now would be a good time to let us know.
There's a question right at the beginning.
Let's see if we missed one.
Beginners, is it just beginners?
I think we've tackled all the ones that have come in so far. Oh, your course is likely for the beginners or some experienced users? Both. Again, if you check out the website, you'll see a range of courses from Logic 1 and Ableton Live Production 1 that are aimed squarely at people that are new to this and are essentially beginners, through to a mastering course, which is aimed at very experienced users and is a very sort of high-end audio mastering course. So we cover the whole range. If you're not sure what level you're at, and if you're learning on your own, sometimes it's difficult to tell. That's what I'm here for, and I work with a team of course advisors who'll be happy to talk to you and kind of guide you through what the right level is for you. Advise you on software if you're still at that sort of stage of the process. But yeah, we're here to help. There's someone in the office from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, Monday to Thursday. We work weekends as well. So yeah, drop us an email via the website. There's a live chat function on the website as well if you just have to have an answer right now. Or you can pick up the phone. We'd love to hear from you. I'll just check and see if there's any final questions. Okay, so yeah, MW2 Kitata, yeah, just followed up on what I was just talking about. So do we test people to find out what level they're at? It's not usually necessary, in the sense that everyone that works here has got a background in kind of music and music production. So we can usually tell more or less where you are just by speaking to you on the phone. It's helpful if you can send us a link to like a SoundCloud account or something like that, and we can get a bit of a feel for what kind of music you're making and what level you're at. But yeah, usually once we've had the opportunity to speak to you and find out a bit more about you, we can guide you on an appropriate level of course for you. So as I say, that's what we're here for. Great. Okay.
Was he asking about Logic sound design course? Yeah, it is, isn't it? The Native Instruments sound design course.
Yeah, the Native Instruments one, just to clarify, the Native Instruments sound design course you can take on Cubase, Logic or Ableton Live, whatever platform you're on. We can accommodate you. How are we doing for time? Yeah? Okay, well, yeah, thanks to everyone who's posted questions. Really great to hear from you. Thanks for getting involved. We'll be back again next week, same time, for another Friday Forum Live. So yeah, tell your friends. If you've got friends who make music, get them to come along, and the more people get involved, the better, and the better we can answer your questions. So Yeah, and also if you've got suggestions for things you'd like us to cover, let us know. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
So.